Wayne LeRiche of Palo Alto Networks, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining me today. Agencies are telling me they're all in on generative AI. They've taken that leap to that level of technology. What are some of the risks that they should keep in mind, and what are some of the benefits that maybe they're not reaping the full potential of quite yet?
Yeah, good question. From my perspective, the benefits are pretty evident as far as what they can do with AI. But they're making these decisions whether or not to go with their own model, kind of build it on the side there, consume like a cloud-based model. Whatever they do, they need to make sure that they're kind of protecting those models, though. All the data that they're using, all the things that they're using to train it. So there's a number of ways that they can do things like posture management, making sure that the data is not accessible to the wrong people, things of that nature. So, in my view, that's really one of the main things that they should be doing, really.
Mm-hmm. What are the techniques for that kind of protection that have proven to be the most successful?
Again, there are tools that are available that can help with things like that posture management, whether it's in the cloud or whether it's their own, private data center kind of set aside language model that they're building. So there's a number of tools that we're building as a vendor community to help them get to that point, really to be accretive to what they already have, right? We understand things like posture management, data loss prevention, things, all of that. Now we're shifting it into this AI model. And so there are nuances with that, but it's really a kind of an evolution of what we've already been doing. So that's when I talk to customers, it's usually that education of here's the tools that are available, here's what we're trying to do, and that's really where we're getting to.
You mentioned that some organizations are building their own, some organizations are using off-the-shelf stuff. Does that matter as far as the way the organizations think about implementing the tools? And how does one make that choice? Do we want to build something ourselves, or do we want to try something off the shelf?
Yeah, I can see both sides of that coin. I think that the main thing about using the off the shelf is just the supply chain. So there's just another aspect of the security piece to it. When we're talking about AI and cybersecurity for AI, that's a big piece of it, is really making sure that the models are secure, things of that nature. When they move towards their own model, a lot of times, just like with any kind of disconnected environment, there are nuances to that as well that maybe get missed. And so I think that from a security posture perspective, there's not that much of a difference. There might, like, again, the supply chain piece on the cloud side, but yeah, for both, they still need to protect it,
How thinly can one slice that decision? Because it strikes me, you mentioned how important the data is and protecting the data, especially when it's proprietary data that one is using to train models. So I wonder, can you do an off-the-shelf AI solution, but train it only on your internal data? How many different flavors of this can you get?
Yeah, sure. There are ways to do that. I think one of the other things that we can do from a training perspective, if you're using that model, is put in protections for those users that are actually feeding the data into it, the guardrails, et cetera, kind of really making sure that almost like a broker, like something in between, where you're not going to that native interface and kind of cutting and pasting in things. You're going to a kind of intermediary that's doing the vetting first on that user's behalf and then sending that information in. So there's a few ways that I think that we see agencies able to kind of alleviate some of the threats.
How are agencies evaluating, in your view, the ways to make sure they're getting the results that they want? Is it as simple as we've gained this much efficiency, or whatever the measure is for the outputs that they're going for, or are there other things that they should keep in mind?
Well, like I said, the tools are evolving from the vendors as well. And so I think some of the things that we're doing is trying to make these dashboards and the UX easier for them to understand, right? If they're using AI models that are SaaS models in the cloud, they can't just blanket say, well, we're going to block all of those models, or we're not going to use those, or we can only use this or that. They really need to be able to have a good inventory of what they're actually using, because there are some SaaS models and things that are not necessarily known as AI, or they're not well known, right? So we need to have an inventory of what these tools are, who's using them, what kind of data they're feeding to them, and then help the government customer understand like the risk factor of it, whether or not they want to allow it or block it or, evaluate it. And so we're building tools to help them do that. And that's, yeah, exactly what I think they would need to do as far as evolving to this model.
Wayne, thanks for your insight. Appreciate having you here today.
Great.